There was 41 tons of carpet. Now again, when I say this, it's not a stat that people are proud of, that once upon a time, that carpet would have been rolled up, thrown in a bulk bin and taken to landfill.
Yep.
It wouldn't have been repurposed, it wouldn't have been recycled, and that would have been the methodology.
And these are literally just marquees and areas set up for a week or two, and then gone.
So these are the corporate marquees at the Grand Prix, from the Red Bull marquee through the chicane marquee. The carpet's walked on for 3 days, and it is a good quality carpet.
Are you finding commercially now you're seeing a much bigger interest now in waste, whereas in the past, let's say a cafe or a restaurant, everything went in the bin? Manufacturing businesses, maybe now they're segregating differently. Maybe they only had 2 bins, now they've got 3 or 4 bins. Are you seeing a trend?
Absolutely. And to your point, it is being driven by cost. So most people, they think they're doing the right thing by putting that in a recycling bin.
Sure.
Unfortunately, even if it makes it to a material recovery facility, it'll end up at landfill because it doesn't have an end market. It reaches a certain threshold, whether that's by weight or by volume, that bin communicates with our eye in the sky, our cloud, and that bin is then set to a collection requirement. And again, if I think of the location where we are, there'd be a dozen trucks that would drive down this road every couple of hours.
Yep.
So why rely on one truck, one fleet, one route to pick your bin up?
The information provided is for general information and educational purposes only and should not be considered financial advice. You should consult with a qualified financial advisor before making any investment or financial decisions.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Scottie G Show podcast. My next guest today is going to be here talking about all things waste, recycling, repurposing, a serious topic at the moment. And Daniel Paone from the Waste Network, also my good friend, is here to discuss that exact topic. Daniel, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, and congratulations.
Thank you
on something that evolved from nothing, and the episodes have been fantastic, and your guests have been great, so I'm privileged to be one of them.
I hope you've caught some of the episodes or caught some of the...
Yeah. And again, a lot of different content, a lot of different people on the podcast. It's cool.
And it's funny, most conversations I have generally start with this, but you may not know, but it was going to be called the Hospitality World Direct Show.
Okay.
So the idea was I was going to get chefs, I was going to get people, anything food service related.
Sure.
So it was going to be suppliers, it was going to be finance, kitchen design, about different equipment, talk about different restaurateurs doing all different cuisines. And then I stopped and I was like, I'm going to run out of content eventually. Like, how can I just talk about that? Sure, I could, but would I get bored also? So that's why I said, you know what, let's call it the Scottie G Show, and I can still bring restaurateurs, and I can still bring...
I saw the episode last week with Comcater.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was, with Silver Chef.
Silver Chef,
Yep.
Yes, sorry.
And we then repurposed that content for Hospitality World Direct through the business. And it's great because now I can not only do that whenever, but I can bring you on and talk about your jam.
Waste. Yeah, no, I appreciate it.
So let's start with you. Before we talk about the Waste Network, let's start with you. How did you end up here today? What was your journey? From when you were born, like you got to start from day one.
Yeah, 1980. July 1980. I mean, I guess like a lot of people, you have different chapters of your journey. You know, I guess my first chapter was growing up in an environment where you realise that hard work was critical, and you know, and growing up, you saw success in business, and you know, I guess for me, that was a motivation to want to get on the right pathway. Early days, finished school, Mazenod College, where we met. Ended up in university doing a degree in management and marketing. why management and marketing? And I think that was just the appeal around business at that point in
Yep.
time.
You sort of always knew you wanted to be in business, but didn't know
Yeah.
exactly what.
Yeah, look, that's probably fair. You know, if I go back to mum and dad, you know, dad was always in business. So I saw it through their window. And, you know, if I look at my personality and skill set, you know, I enjoy dealing with people. I enjoy building things. I enjoy seeing a vision come to reality. So, you know, for me, that sort of took me down the business path. Graduating from uni, I started working with a company called McDonald Johnston Engineering. It was a graduate position. And again, if I go back to being 22 and applying for jobs, it was really about an opportunity, getting my foot into the right organisation. And fortunately it was. I had a really good and I think for the most part, very grounded learning over that sort of first chapter in work life. McDonald Johnston was a manufacturer of garbage trucks. And they were an Australian manufacturer of garbage trucks. So it was actually really cool. You're dealing with boys' toys. You know, there was trucks and fabrication and, but they were hell bent on remaining an Australian manufacturer, which meant that they have to continue to push for efficiency and quality, training of their staff, and ensuring they always had the edge so that the product wasn't sent overseas and manufactured over there.
Would they build trucks for all different suppliers of or waste recyclers?
Yeah, I mean,
so just with different branding, or they would supply it as a chassis and then
it varied. You know, you had local councils that had their specific chassis type. You had private contractors that again had their specific chassis type, and again the specification from company to company did vary. But for the most part, you know, it was a plain hamburger, and then we bolted on based on the client's needs, based on the environment. Again, you know, regional Victoria is very different to collections in the city of Yarra. So depending on the need and the density of the environment, that tended to have an impact. Booker then acquired McDonald Johnston Engineering. Booker were a European, a Swiss-based company, and they were sort of global experts in industrial manufacturing. So they had divisions of their business that manufactured wine presses. They also manufactured road sweepers, which was their appeal for the Johnson Group at the time. They manufactured winter maintenance equipment. So again, when the Swiss acquired McDonald Johnston, that then changed the landscape in the way that the organisation looked at running the business, manufacturing. And for me, that was a fantastic learning. I was fortunate to get lots of different experiences, you know, overseas travel.
So what year are we talking now?
So this is anywhere from sort of 2002 to 2015 I left.
Yep.
Fantastic mentors, you know, great learnings.
And you would have learnt a lot about running a big business.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, I was right in it. Towards the end, I was fortunate to sit on the executive. And so again, you know, if I look at my journey with McDonald Johnston that then became Booker, it was my long, but my very fruitful apprenticeship. You know, I learnt business, and again, dealing with customers, you know, very different types of customers as you touched on. Some as big as the Cleanaways and Veolias, and some as small as mum and dads that went out on a limb and bought their own truck, and they drove their own truck, and they wanted service reliability, they wanted someone to call at the end of the day. And so there were a lot of values and learnings that I acquired through that Booker experience.
Yep.
But after a period of time, I knew my time was up there, and I'm fortunate that I was given an opportunity to go across to Veolia. Again, another large multinational based out of Paris, was head office. And they were...
And obviously they knew about you through the industry,
Yeah,
obviously.
look, we had a relationship as a supplier. So you know, they were going through some structural changes, and fortunately there was an opportunity that suited my skill set. And it was the right time. It was the right time for me to sort of broaden my learnings. And Veolia was such an interesting organisation because it had so much advanced thinking. So it was always, being a European company, it was always looking at that new innovation. It was always looking at ways of better providing customer experience. And so again, that gave me a skill set and sort of rounded me out after the Booker experience. Almost 7 years there, or let's call it 7 years at Veolia. And then COVID hit. And, you know, I was still at Veolia in 2020, but the world changed, and I think maybe, you know, that was a bit of a change in my life as well, where I thought, you know, fortunately, Christina and the kids, we were settled. You know, we had a good nest, so it's always good to have a good nest at home, and Christina knew that I had ambition to start my own business. So she backed me, and on the couch, sort of, you know, early 2021, once I'd sort of decided to part ways with Veolia, the Waste Network was born. So, you know, taking sort of 20 odd years of corporate experience and then starting your own business was a big leap. But, you know, again, like anything in life, I took it as a learning initially. I certainly lent on my network, and I lent on a lot of people that I knew and trusted to give me some support and guidance.
Makes a big difference, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. If I think back to the amount of conversations I had of something as simple as, how do you set up your own website?
Yeah.
You know, how do you even register a website domain? Because again, you know, it sounds like I should know that, or that's common knowledge, but when you're in corporate for so long...
There's a team of people doing all different things.
Correct. So it's a very different model than what I was used to in business. You know, I often tell the story, I didn't realise how important accounts receivable was until such time as it's critical for you to, you know, get paid, so then you can pay your suppliers, and, you know, the list goes on.
You don't need to check the bank account when you're working for a big company, but all of a sudden now you need to know exactly what's coming in, what's going out.
Absolutely. And, you know, any errors in your invoicing ultimately costs you personally and the business.
Yep.
But I was fortunate to have a great accountant. I was fortunate to have a great network of people that, you know, including family and friends that helped me, you know, understand that structure and understand what the important things were to focus on. And I think, you know, I probably just had a burning passion to want to give it a go.
Yep.
And
you got to put your balls on the line, because you're going to go from a steady income.
Yep.
You know, having a management role in a large corporation, and then all of a sudden going to run your own business for the unknown. Sure, you're going to use the people you know and the network, and you're going to try to build that business as quick as you can, but you don't know how long that's going to take.
Correct.
You don't know how long you're going to need to finance this for until you can start to get a little bit of momentum.
Correct. And reputation.
Yep.
You know, again, when you're in the big corporate environment, your reputation is somewhat subject to the organisation you're in. You can influence it, but when you're out on your own, everything you do, from the way that you communicate to customers to the way that you engage with suppliers and partners, you know, builds on the reputation that you want in the industry. And then, you know, the more that you grow, or the longer your journey is in that business, the more important it is that you get your reputation right, so you continue to get that word of mouth opportunity, as well as protect the market that you've got, or the opportunities that you've got.
One of my favorite things to talk about on this podcast is the entrepreneurial side and people that have started their own business. When you first started the Waste Network, was it one man band, or did you have a little bit of help along the way from day one, or were you just one man band at the beginning?
No, it was just a one man band, and I think that probably was part of what was daunting. Again, you know,
because you become everything: the web designer, the
you're
accounts
everything.
payable,
Yeah,
receivable.
Absolutely, and you know, that was the fastest learning. It's on me now. You know, there's no one to fall back on. You can't just walk into your boss's office and say, you know, I need a hand, or, you know, whatever. You can't manage upwards.
Give me some resources.
It's on you, right? So, you know, that was the biggest challenge. That was the biggest learning. And quite fortunately, like I said before, when I didn't know the answer, I could pick up the phone. And I think that's probably been the blessing, you know, having a really good network.
And like the name suggests in your business name, it's all about network, isn't it?
Yeah. Look, and our tagline is built for partners, wired for change. And the built for partners piece is because, again, we act as a conduit. And partners to us are the customers, but equally they are the suppliers. And so, the waste network functions on a model where it's critical that we have solid relationships with suppliers, so we're never letting our customers down. And equally, with our customers, we're treating them, as we should, as a partner. So, again, stakeholder management is also a really quick learning. Like, again, you know that in corporate life. You live and breathe it in corporate life, but when it's you, and when you're the only one that's trying to build this reputation, trying to grow your business, having stakeholders that you can manage and obviously build on is a tough thing. So yeah.
Now, the waste network deals with myriad of different customers, from small operators to large events, which we'll touch on in a minute.
Sure.
Some of the things that you guys do. When you're dealing with, say, the smaller customers, are they approached with sort of a different mindset in regards to what the needs are? Because me personally, I use the waste network for all my waste needs, so cardboard, waste, sanitary. We've looked at steel. We've talked about all these things, and then obviously you've referred to it as the Uber of the waste industry, which I love that. Can you explain that? What do you mean by that?
When we started the business, having 20 years of experience in the industry, it was apparent to me that there were a lot of really good organisations out there that collected waste. There are a lot of fantastic organisations out there that received waste and processed waste. And I say waste, recycling, commodities. And so I didn't see that as a gap in the market. I didn't see the market saying, we want another waste collection business.
Yep.
What I felt the market needed, and I guess if you look at European models and some parts of Asia, what the market needed was an organisation that was able to manage their services, their portfolio of services, and do it with some really reputable partners that they could work to provide that customer excellence in customer service or customer experience, and importantly, be able to manage the customer's commercial interests. So again, it's critical to us, using Hospitality World Direct, is that anyone can knock on the door and offer you a cheap bin collection. That's the easy part. But what we bring to the table is we bring data, we bring reporting, we bring a focus on understanding what are you actually putting in the bin, how frequently you're collecting that waste, and is it really getting disposed in the right location? And you touched on it before, whether that customer is as small as a cafe or as big as Flemington Racecourse, every customer has a unique portfolio. I call it an ecosystem of waste. Some are managing it quite well, some are not managing it well, and I think that also comes from the change in the world, and certainly Australia is a little further behind some more advanced cultures in Europe, where waste is not treated in those parts of the world as something that's disposed of and put into a landfill. Commodity management is the way of the world, where people are looking at cardboard. And I know that Hospitality World Direct has been an avid, segregator of cardboard. And people that are
We get lots of it.
You get lots of cardboard. I mean, cardboard today is everywhere in everything we do, including deliveries to your front door. And that was again probably accelerated in that COVID period. But if we find a customer that's putting cardboard into a general waste bin, or even to that matter, putting it into a mixed recycle bin, our position would be to explain to that customer that the cost of recycling cardboard as a standalone stream is significantly less as opposed to the other two. So working with that customer to define what are their key waste streams, how we can put a system in place that can manage their unique footprint and ultimately improve their environmental outcomes, but also with that comes a reduction in their commercial cost. And in 2026, certainly, I haven't heard the interest rate outcome today, but there's a lot of pressure on families, there's a lot of pressure on businesses. cost pressure is real. So what we're explaining to customers is we don't need to make significant changes to the footprint you've got. We just have to better educate you and show you how you can recycle to get those cost savings. At the moment, the levy in Victoria is around about $167. That's a government tax, essentially, per tonne. That's probably about $70 behind New South Wales. And you would think that over the next 5 years, the Victorian government, whichever party's in power, will continue to increase that levy, A, as a tax for them, but B, because they are trying to steer people away from disposing at landfill. It is not the most environmental outcome that anyone could look for.
Just fill up holes.
Just fill up holes, and what makes it worse is fill up holes with commodities, fill up holes with steel, fill up holes with timber.
Doesn't make sense, does it?
It doesn't, and a recent example is our success at the Australian Grand Prix. We just closed out the waste management report for that event. There was 41 tonnes of carpet. Now, again, when I say this, it's certainly, not a stat that people are proud of, that once upon a time, that carpet would have been rolled up, thrown in a bulk bin and taken to landfill.
Yep.
It wouldn't have been repurposed, it wouldn't have been recycled, and that would have been the methodology.
And these are literally just marquees and areas set up for a week or two and then gone.
So these are the corporate marquees at the Grand Prix, from the Red Bull marquee through the chicane marquee. The carpet's walked on for 3 days, and it is a good quality carpet. So fortunately, you touched on it in your introduction, we go beyond just recycling. And one of the things that I'm passionate about is how we as a society can repurpose materials. So we actually donated that 41 tonne of material to a company called Outlook Australia. They are an organisation that employ people with disabilities. And they will do a couple of things. They'll either look into their network and see where they can repurpose that carpet, and or they will sell that carpet, and then the money that they receive from the sale of that carpet will go to supporting people with disabilities. So,
but either way, it's repurposed. So it's a much better outcome than being in a bin.
Absolutely. And that's the messaging that is now coming through the market. Timber, again, whether it be the Grand Prix or the Melbourne Cup Carnival, there is a huge amount of timber beams that get built for a short period of time, a week, as you say. And then again, once upon a time, that was disposed of in landfill. Then it evolved into recycling outcomes, which is still great. Turns into a landscape supply. But today and for the future, we're looking to repurpose that timber to find community groups and to find places of worship or scouts. There are so many different avenues that once you treat that waste as a valuable commodity, you can find pathways that will create value.
Yep.
And so that's what we're all about. Like I said before, we didn't intend to start this business and just be another waste collector.
Yep.
We're also not an organisation that will accept every customer just because. And I mean that from a strategic standpoint. We want customers that we can add value to, and everyone measures value different. That's the way of the world.
Yep.
Some customers measure value by saying, I want to put everything under one supplier, and I want excellence in customer service.
Yep.
I want a good outcome on my commercials, but my aim is to have a one-stop shop that I can deal with. There are other customers that look at value to say, well, how much money can you save me? And if I put systems in place to do that, I'll get that outcome. So, again, we try and look at things from a case-by-case basis. But in saying that, again, the industry continues to evolve, and opportunities, the container deposit scheme. Fortunately, over my journey through the Waste Network, I was engaged to support a container deposit recycler and help them establish a network in the eastern zone of Victoria. And that scheme not only is creating wealth, because now you actually earn money from recycling.
And Victoria's behind in this, right? Because the other states have been doing it. We read it on our South Australia, I think, for a long time.
South Australia's had the longest running scheme.
Yeah.
I mean, we had a scheme back in the 80s.
Actually, I think I remember as a kid collecting cans.
Cash for cans.
Cash
you
for
know,
cans,
it
yeah.
used to be cash for cans. That was
Yep.
the scheme back then. And yeah, you're right. So Victoria is.
Why did it stop? Sorry to interrupt you. Why did
That I don't know. No, so it's not the first time I've been asked that. I don't know, to be honest. Whether that was through government change, whether that was a regulation thing, whether it was too onerous and not profitable for the operators. I don't know the answer. But
Unlike Victoria to backflip on decisions with government.
well, maybe it was a change of government that forced it. I don't know, to be honest. But having the scheme now in place, and yes, you're right, Victoria's one of the last states. It wasn't the last, but it was certainly one of the last states to adopt the scheme. Tasmania.
Okay. They're too far away.
They are, but they're actually great recyclers, the Tasmanians.
Yeah.
So CDS has really accelerated the opportunity for the recycling sector to find new pathways for the PET plastic bottles or the aluminium cans, and again, capturing that material in a clean stream. Having clean streams enables you to go to the next phase of recycling, which is those end markets, which is taking PET and turning it into a resin, and then in turn that evolves into another PET bottle and or another form of rPET, as they call it. So another plastic container. And again, there's a huge push from the majors, from the major retailers, as an example. So they're looking at their packaging, and they're saying to their supply network, we want recycled content in our packaging.
Yep.
So that's influencing this demand in the marketplace for more recyclable products.
Yep. And
So-
it also almost feels like a social obligation or an environmental obligation now, where companies are sort of saying, well, we can all do our little bit now to try to recycle and try to
Sure.
get products that are at least from recycled products.
Sure. Well, ESG, it's real, and to your point, environmental social governance, it's something that my understanding is any business over 100 million has to comply with. And to your point, they have to report on how they're impacting that ESG space.
So you're saying, for example, like at one of the big supermarkets, if they're talking to a supplier, one of the crucial points is how are you going to send the product to me?
Correct.
What packaging, and then what product, what is it used from?
Correct. And what are your ESG policies internally? So as an organisation, that forms part of their selection criteria to choose the right partners.
That probably reduces imported products too, I presume. Because some imported products may not comply to whatever that is.
Look, possibly, and again, if we're specific on recycled content, and I remember going up to a facility once in Shepparton, and these guys manufactured plastic containers that food producers use, like whether it be a strawberry tub, like they're just plastic strawberry tubs.
Yeah, the ones with little holes.
Yeah. So again, with the mandate that came from the Coles and the Woolies of the world, they had to import rolls of rPET from the US because there wasn't enough supply in the Australian market. So again, what CDS is driving is an increase in volume. So better recycling initiatives are driving volume that's creating these end markets, and then we as the consumer, to your point, don't have to import it from overseas. We've got our own market that's enabling us to use recycled content in our packaging.
Without talking too much about CDS, why only some councils are giving the purple bins?
The glass bin?
Yeah. So I'm just curious,
Yeah,
is that
it's a little historical, that legislation. So that may go back to around 2018 maybe, when again there was a bit of a shift in the marketplace. There was a policy that China, they called China Sword at that point in time, where essentially it changed what we were exporting, and the Australian government at that point in time, rightfully so, got serious about what products we're exporting, waste recycling products that we're exporting, and wanted to control more of the commodities in our own market. And I guess we were forced at that point in time to create more end market manufacturers that enabled us to have this supply chain. To answer your question about why certain products, again, I think that comes back to the demand from the beverage companies. So yeah, it's again, like anything, it's supply and demand.
Yep.
And as supply and demand evolves and grows, as does the market.
The Waste Network is helping venues, events, education providers, and commercial organisations turn waste into opportunity. Through innovative recycling programs, container scheme solutions, food organics recovery, detailed reporting, and sustainable strategy, the Waste Network delivers measurable environmental outcomes while reducing operational costs. Whether it's a major event, hospitality venue, or commercial property, the Waste Network provides practical, data-driven solutions that improve recovery rates, increase efficiency, and support a more circular economy.
So residentially, everyone's used to their yellow bin. They throw their cardboard and plastics. Depending on what council you're in, your red bin does your rubbish. Some councils have the purple bins for the glass containers. Stuff. Are you seeing more of a shift commercially now, as you talked about margins getting tighter in businesses? Okay, as business owners, everything we are doing today is harder than what we were doing a few years ago, simply because our costs have increased. Sure. Everything has gone up. Our insurances, our rents, our wages, our cost of running business has gone up, and we can't necessarily charge our customers at the same rate of the inflation. Are you finding commercially now you're seeing a much bigger interest now in waste, whereas in the past, let's say a cafe or a restaurant, everything went in the bin? Manufacturing businesses, maybe now they're segregating differently. Maybe they only had 2 bins, now they've got 3 or 4 bins. Are you seeing a trend?
Absolutely, yeah. And to your point, it is being driven by costs. Once upon a time, waste on your P&L only represented a small percentage. Yes. With, again, the increase in levy costs, the cost of collecting waste is significantly higher because, again, you've got a truck. The truck these days, and I remember back in 2002, when we were first selling garbage trucks, probably $180,000 would get you a garbage truck. Now you're closer to $500,000. So the cost of everything has gone up. So now you're an operator, you're collecting waste, and you're having to then pass those costs on. You've got diesel costs that have obviously significantly increased, and those increases were happening prior to the Iran war. But the cost of a driver, your labour cost as an operator has also increased. So the collection companies have incurred significant costs. They're then getting passed on to the consumer. So the cost of waste has increased. That has, to your point, driven a focus or at least a consideration around recycling. So what if I recycle? And that's why, again, our approach is to really understand what the footprint is of the customer and put a system in place that doesn't create inefficiency in their business. I mean, you yourself know that labour's one of your biggest inputs. So if you've got staff all day long sorting your recycling, maybe there's a benefit to the environment. But if you weigh the commercial costs of the labour that you're now asking to do that, maybe it doesn't stack up. So again, our job is to put really simple systems in place that make businesses efficient, reduce their costs through the right environmental outcomes.
And you will talk to smaller businesses and tender for the large corporate events?
Sure. Again, if the business has an appetite for that.
Yep.
We're not interested in playing that rate card game. And I think far too often in businesses, you can lose sight of what value you offer. And so it's been really important for us to define the value and how value for that customer is understood as well. There's no point dealing with someone that doesn't see the value you offer. So, we deal with the smallest of small cafes through to the largest, events and venues, in this country. So,
perfect segue. The large major events. Sure. How did you get into that space? Was that always the intention of the business? Was that something that you said, I want the Waste Network to? Sure, I can help businesses, Scott, no problems, Hospitality World Direct, happy to help you out. But my core focus is going to be major events. Was that always the original plan, or did it just sort of fall that way?
I think it evolved that way because of our passion to be able to influence a footprint and create systems. And the bigger events, obviously, it's captive. So, again, if you use the Melbourne Cup Carnival as an example, You know that in those 4 days, you've got X number of people, you've got a size of a venue being the footprint of Flemington Racecourse, you've got your glass streams, you've got your cardboard streams, you've got your food organic streams, you've got your construction materials to build and then demobilise. So knowing that we had the option to influence all of those streams was probably the appeal. Part of it was a little bit of luck as well. And I think, again, if I think back to that period, we were the obvious choice because we had a passion for that recycling piece and we had a know-how on how to create that system. But, again, it goes back to that reputation piece I spoke to before. We were fortunate to be given opportunities early days because people knew me and the guys that I brought on from our past life. And they were looking for that reliable partnership that I was hell-bent on delivering. So given the first opportunity, delivering on what you say you're going to do is critical. And I think just over time, if I think of the 5-year journey that is the Waste Network, I pride myself on never letting people down. And if that means I'm sitting up at night working till 3 a.m., then so be it. If it means that, I've got to go back to the customer with an alternate proposal because something didn't work the way we thought it, honesty is the best policy. Honesty builds trust. And I think in business there, it's a critical piece. You have to build trust with clients. So again, going back to your question, the opportunities with major events evolved as people started to see us as that subject matter expert. They trusted what we would do. We're also quite passionate about being on the grounds. So again, another piece of our value proposition is that when the Melbourne Cup Carnival is on, we're there. We're there weeks before, during the event, and weeks after to ensure that we never let our partner down. So Circa, who's our partner at Flemington, built a trust that we'd be on the ground with them. So when there is a problem, it gets resolved, it gets sorted. And equally...
I mean, Melbourne Cup, Formula One, the Melbourne Show. I mean, when it comes to events in Melbourne, it doesn't get any bigger, if you ask me.
Sure.
And as a consumer, let's just call it, or an event go up, we finish our drink, we chuck it in the bin. We don't think of it at all. I'm just looking for the bar. Where's the next one?
Sure.
Right? What goes into it? Give us a little bit of an insight. It's Derby Day, whatever. It's Melbourne Cup Day, whatever it may be, or the GP, race day. What goes into it? I mean, is there bins getting picked up constantly in the background, just all the time? Or is it end of the day, it all happens? Give us some insight into it.
I guess the starting point is that waste management plan. So again, one of the subject matter expertise that we have is the ability to develop a plan specific for that event or specific for that venue.
Entrance points, exit points.
Well, developing that plan is all about how much volume you have to handle and what type of volume you have to handle. So, again, we worked out pretty quickly with the likes of a Melbourne Cup Carnival. I say quickly. I probably shouldn't have said that because it wasn't quick. It was a really long learning because again, everything changes and again, as their venues change and their marquees change, you've got to continually evolve. But what we worked out quickly is the more questions we were asking about what product was coming in, the better equipped we were to build systems to be able to manage them. So what you don't see behind the scenes is, using the Melbourne Cup Carnival as an example, I mean, there would be over 35 large bulk bins that we have hidden behind the scenes. There is relift on site, there are compactors on site, and there are a team of cleaners that work for our partner Circa. There's also a team of sustainability officers that work for us that are behind the scenes ensuring that the product, again, let's use glass as an example, the product is going into the right pathway, and then when it ends up in the bin, let's call it, it's contamination free. That enables us to take it, once the event's over, to the next step. So an event like Melbourne Cup Carnival, for the period that the event is on, we can't essentially service a bin. There is servicing behind the scenes into a compactor. They are servicing plastic bins. But
And is there sorting of the waste?
there is. And again, we've got a system in place with a partner where a lot of that waste is taken off site, the dry waste recovery material. So cardboards, plastics, CDS, some glass. We try and avoid glass because it can be quite damaging to the other products. Taken off site, again at night outside the event, where it's sorted and it's segregated into individual streams, and then we take it to that next step of the chain, which is a recycler or a receiver of repurposed material.
It's something that people don't think of.
That's
why I asked the question, because it's interesting.
I've seen you many times in a marquee drinking your beer out of a glass bottle, and again, I don't expect you to think about it. I don't want you to think about it. That's probably more of our view. What I'd love you to know is that the glass bottle that you drank out of in the bird cage at the Melbourne Cup Carnival is being recycled and turned into a new bottle.
Yep.
That's the part of the story that we're really focused on at the moment, ensuring that people do know that happens.
Yep.
And so whilst it starts with a waste management plan, it ends with a waste management report, and we've got the opportunity now with the events that we've got is to educate, coming on podcasts like this. Our branding and marketing is all focused around that education piece.
Yep.
And people are genuinely interested in understanding. Maybe at 3 o'clock on Derby Day they don't care, but at least they know afterwards that there's going to be a good outcome for that material.
I was going to say, not counting the beers that I had in the birdcage with you, what sort of tonnage are we talking about for a whole carnival or a Formula? Like, what's the biggest volume?
Carnival's the biggest volume for glass. For glass it is.
Surprise.
And again, it's the makeup. It's champagne bottles, wine bottles, beer bottles. In the 2025 Melbourne Cup Carnival, with our partner Bottle Cycler and Circa, we delivered about 100 tonnes of glass.
Wow.
And that's
100 tonnes.
It is. It's a huge number. And the good news is all of that glass goes into bottle recycling, bottle to bottle recycling, or if it's too damaged to go into that stream, we always find road construction material pathways.
Yeah. But when you say too damaged, isn't it crushed anyway?
It is crushed, you're right, but it depends on what part of the system that it then gets taken to that next phase. So a lot of material that does end up at the transfer station is often too contaminated with other materials to end up in bottle recycling, but we can screen it and wash it and put it through a construction, road-based type environment.
Yep.
But yeah, 100 tonnes, again, champagne is drunk. What we've got to get better at, and this is something that we're working closely with the VRC on, is understanding where these bottles are going to be served so that we can make it easy for the public. So when you're sitting on the front lawn at Flemington, you've got access to glass-only bins.
Yep.
And so that way then we continue to create cleaner pathways for that glass material.
Less sorting later.
Less sorting, less contamination, yeah.
What's your favourite event? I know you're working. You're working at these events. What's your favourite event?
They're different. I mean, I actually really enjoy the Melbourne Royal Show. It's a great event. I love the livestock and, the animal nursery. It's a nice event for kids and families to go along to, the rides.
Yeah.
And it's very different to a Melbourne Cup Carnival, which is about glitz, glamour, horses and having a great time. I've got to say, whether it's the Melbourne Cup Carnival, the Melbourne Royal Show, or it's the Australian Grand Prix, the event organisers are fantastic. They are creating these amazing spectacles for us to go to. The F1 is just incredible how much public interest is there.
And it's international.
It is.
You're talking about people that are flying in
Yeah.
just for the race
Yeah.
to set up. They bring a team of people. I don't know how many staff are in on each team. And they build this city and then they're out and they're doing it again in another country. Unbelievable.
It's huge. I mean, the F1, to your point, there's nothing like the F1 in terms of the volume of people that come in And again, anyone that knows Albert Park Lake knows that you don't have a lot of space to work within. So it's incredible how well designed it is to be able to create all these back of house environments that people don't see. And those back of house environments have essentially got people from lots of different areas of responsibility managing the events. You know, again, it's hard for me to have a favourite, but no, I've really enjoyed the F1 over the last couple of years. I've enjoyed it because there's this buzz about it. Like when the F1 comes to Melbourne, everyone's talking about it, you know. And I think Drive to Survive may have had its influence. Sure. I think Austria Piastri has had his influence, you know. So I think there's a buzz, and it is international. You know, but I'm a horse guy, and I still love the Melbourne Cup Carnival. And I think
put a suit on, it's got a different vibe.
It's nice. The girl, you know, the ladies, they love the day out and the makeup and the glitz and glamour, and you know, there's something really nice about that as well. And it's historical, you know. Again, if I even think of my mum and dad, almost 50 years ago, I'll say it was probably 48, they met at the Melbourne Cup Carnival.
Really? I didn't know that.
They did, yeah. So Melbourne Cup has been around for a very, very long time. You know, the Victoria Racing Club has a strong history, you know, and I'm just proud to be part of it. Yeah, it's sometimes you pinch yourself that you are involved in these great events, and and that probably is what motivates me and drives me harder to continue to deliver better.
Look, you said before, you know, maybe there was a little bit of luck involved in these major events, but as we all know in business, you create your own luck.
Sure.
And you've done a fantastic job in terms of winning those major events, because they are like, I named them, they are like, it doesn't get bigger in Melbourne. And kudos to Melbourne too. We've got to keep that going.
Absolutely.
The more events we can have here in Melbourne, because sure, we've got some other issues here in this state. People are wanting to leave. We got to keep bringing people in, and those major events do exactly that.
Yeah, 100%.
How are we doing things different to the rest of the world? Because we obviously live in our bubble. You know, Australia, we're a big island. We know that we put rubbish here, recycle there. It's pretty basic how we do things here.
Yeah.
I am presuming there is other countries doing things completely different. Better or worse, I don't know. That's why I ask you, because I'm sure you've shown interest in other countries and how they do things and learn from them.
Yeah, and you know, had the opportunity to see it as well. You know, I'll say that Australia's on a journey, a cultural journey of understanding its environmental footprint, and that doesn't come from a place of, you know, being, you know, a greenie per se, but it's just understanding that the practices around waste are changing. You know, if you look at certain mature markets in Europe, the UK, Germany, France, they are ahead of us in terms of their ability, or their I guess their culture around understanding the segregation process of materials. You've probably got a couple of Asian countries that are again ahead of us, and then you've got a lot that are behind Australia. So, you know, we're not the worst. What we're not good at is that education piece, in my opinion. You know, if I think of
education from a young age, or educating adults, or both.
It's a bit of both. It's you know, it's the confusion in the market. It genuinely does, in my opinion, it genuinely doesn't come from a bad place that people don't recycle. It comes from a place of uncertainty at times. And, you know, I tell this story often, you know, these days with the popularity around soy milk, almond milk, oat milk, they come in Tetra Pak containers, and if you picked up a Tetra Pak,
little rectangle ones,
it's a little cardboard box from the outside. Inside's a plastic lining, and it's an aluminium sheet. When you look at it, I think for the most part, it'll say it can be recycled. And look, you know, again, ambitiously, it probably could, but there is no end market for that product right here, right now. So most people, they think they're doing the right thing by putting that in a recycling bin.
Sure.
Unfortunately, even if it makes it to a material recovery facility, it'll end up at landfill because it doesn't have an end market.
And there's probably a little picture on the bin that says don't put this in it, but most people just throw it in.
Yeah, but and again, there's the confusion, right? And you mentioned glass before, so you know there are a number of councils that have rolled out glass-only bins for residents. There are other councils that have got drop-off points at their transfer stations, and there are other councils that are probably slow to take up the change. And there is a bit of noise at the moment where councils, with the introduction of CDS, they're asking, why do we need to implement a glass stream? The challenge that we have as the metropolitan city of Melbourne is that every one of these councils has different arrangements with different receivers. You've got receivers in the west, you've got receivers in the north, you've got receivers in the east. And each of those receivers has different technology in their MRF. So some of those MRFs, material recovery facility, will take glass. Some of them won't. You know, the messaging from that MRF to that council may be different to another one. And therefore that council's message to someone that lives in Werribee may be different to someone that lives in Melton or Mount Waverley or Patterson.
So the lack of consistency is causing a lot of the confusion.
Correct, yeah. And I think, to me, that's why we're behind. The other thing, as we've touched on a couple of times, it's the end market. So, but we're on that path now. So we're creating end markets for recyclable products, and we've got the volume, and there's a lot of interest from the industry to create more of those pathways. But I think, you know, personally, and you know, whether it be a resident or commercially, if you can provide people education and an understanding as to why we're doing this or why they should be doing this, most people will do it. Most people aren't opposed to doing the right thing. Probably the other thing I'll touch on, which I think is important, and certainly we should be proud of it as Australians, is our landscape, our fauna, flora and fauna. We have cleaned up our waterways. You know, I think gone are the days where people accept rubbish being dumped. And I think if you go back 10 years, a lot of our waterways may have had contaminated, you know, bottles and cans and plastics flowing through them. You know, these days there is a genuine interest in ensuring that we leave our environment better than, you know, where we found it. So for our kids and our grandkids and our future generations, Australia is doing a great job of keeping a clean environment.
And that's probably a couple of reasons, right? That's probably environmental awareness, but also now that can floating down the stream's 10 cents.
Correct.
So there's a couple of reasons, I suppose.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think people now, and when we grew up, the way waste and recycling was done is completely different to the way our kids are now learning about.
Sure.
You know, kids are learning about worm farms and compost, and they've got different bins to do different things, and they know the colours, and so the education from that standpoint. I don't know what the schools do though. I don't know.
It's a really good point. I mean, again, you know, and I feel for schools, having a wife that was an educator. Schools are time poor. Schools only have so many resources. A lot of people within that school environment that are driving these sustainability programs do it from a voluntary perspective. There's, you know, one school that we work with. They have an amazing setup, a sustainability garden where, you know, to your point about food organics is composted on site through the worm farm. They use that compost to then feed their veggie patch. They grow veggies. They've got a little chicken coop, you know, but again, that's done by volunteers. It's not done with the ability to employ someone to do that.
Sure.
So,
and it's probably outside the school curriculum. It's not like every school has to do it, or some do it better than others.
I think, you know, it is part of the curriculum, but again, to your point, there are schools that have the opportunity to do it better than others. I don't think it's a deliberate decision that they don't do it. But again, we hope as the Waste Network that we have the ability to influence and support and actually take subject matter expertise to these schools to help them. I think, again, part of it comes back to if you help people put systems in place that are easy and that they can implement, everyone will take it up. Everyone will take up an improvement in their environmental footprint.
You talked before about, you know, Asian countries and different countries in the world doing things differently. Who does it the best that you've seen, in your opinion?
You know, again, a lot of the advanced countries like a Germany, they have a lot of, you know, sort of take back schemes. So again, my understanding is if you go into a German bottle shop, you have to pay this initial levy per se, similar to the CDS, but you've got to bring your bottles back to that bottle shop. So they've got circularity actually at the retailer point. So that's further advanced.
And then the retailer sends it.
And then the retailer sends it out. So it goes via the commercial channel as opposed to, you know, someone dropping that at home in their bin.
Yep.
You've got countries like Japan that culturally they don't see waste as something that's disposed of or dumped. They see waste as something that's their responsibility to segregate. You know, in some Japanese municipalities, there's up to 22 waste streams at a household.
22.
Yeah, 22.
And they're all in apartments.
Well, again, it's not like our bin system where you've got a
Sure.
240 litre bin full of general waste or mixed recycling. Yeah. They go down a level. So, you know, they will drill down and they will segregate by plastic type, or they will segregate by fibre type. So, you know, paper and cardboard in certain parts of Japan are two different streams, not just one. Batteries, e-waste, you know, there's a lot of change to our policy and our legislation where probably about 18 months ago, maybe 2 years ago, e-waste, cabling, computers, keyboards, you know, other e-waste was banned at landfill. And so again, culturally, Japan have been segregating that material for a lot longer than us.
Yep.
They've got sophisticated drop-off points that are within their municipality that they dispose of this material. So, you know, again, I don't think Australia is miles behind the rest of the world. We just have to recognise and understand it better, and I think we can adopt those practices.
And we got to get out of the mentality of we've got so much land, we can just dig a big hole and throw rubbish in there.
Sure.
Because obviously, forget the environmental impacts, because obviously that's huge within itself. Like you were saying before, there is so much repurposing, there is so much recycling, there is so much better ways to handle that.
Yeah.
And who wants to see more tips? And, you know, the less waste we have, the better.
Sure. Yeah, and you know, the Victorian state government will not approve another landfill. You know, they've mandated that.
Is that until they have to?
No, there's no have to. It's
they now manage it differently.
Correct. So, you know, again, I think we'll see an evolution of waste to energy in time. Mm-hmm. I think we'll continue to see...
like in Back to the Future, when he throws the food scraps in the back of the
DeLorean.
DeLorean.
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to be quite that sophisticated, but certainly waste and, you know, Germany, UK, France, they have waste to energy plants that create energy from the calorific value of waste. Unfortunately, they're still burning it. It's incineration, but there is an outcome. What they do is they ensure that all the commodities out of that waste stream before they incinerate and before it becomes a waste to energy product.
Okay. Interesting. I didn't know that they are not going to approve anymore.
No more landfills.
Because I thought, you know, unfortunately the mentality is, we've got so much land, we could just go build another tip somewhere else.
No, and again,
I'm glad to hear that.
This is, I mean, it's a good thing, and this is where the drive to recycle more is right in front of us. Like, we don't have the ability just to open a new landfill in Gippsland and send all our waste to it. So, you know, we've still got plenty of years in our current landfill facilities, but we also have to start to segregate materials so that we don't fill them. You know, but that should be the aim.
Yep.
Find different pathways for those products, those commodities, to create new life.
Something interesting I want to touch on, going back to when I said that I've heard you refer to the waste network as the Uber of the waste industry. The waste network has no trucks.
Sure.
So just explain that for a moment. You become the conduit to then obviously assist the customer come up with an outcome using partners in the waste industry that you know. So you use your expertise, you use your ability to be able to coordinate these major events or for smaller businesses, or come up with different ideas to be good for the environment and hopefully save the business money as well.
Sure. As I said before, I mean, you know, when we started the business, there were already fantastic, reputable organisations out there.
Yeah, your plan wasn't, I'm going to go buy 20 trucks and hit the market and become another competitor to them.
We didn't want to create another competitor that did the same thing.
Yep.
And we also realised with the evolving space, certainly in recycling, that once you start putting money into assets, you want to sweat those assets. So you've got a garbage truck.
You need a return.
You need a return. You've got a $500,000 garbage truck. it starts to change your thinking. At the end of the day, you're going to want that garbage truck picking up as much waste as possible. If it's cardboard, plastic, aluminium, it doesn't matter. I've got to flip bins. I've got to collect waste. And the other thing is that you can't be all things to everyone when you run your fleet, unless you're as big as a Cleanaway, or someone that's got that scale. But for the most part, most collection businesses out there have their fleet. Their fleet specialises in what they do, and that's generally their value proposition to their customer base. So what we wanted to do was we wanted to provide the customer an easy way of managing their waste by using one channel, one portal, one organisation that they trusted, to give them guidance on what the best pathways were for their waste streams. As an example, I got a call from a friend from years gone by saying, I've got this IBC, Dan, and they're into manufacturing beauty products. This particular company, and it's full of leftover shampoos and leftover this and leftover that. What do I do with it, Dan? And the reality is, not everyone has the answer to what do I do with this IBC full of all this material.
Sure, I got no idea.
Yeah, so we again, it's our job as the conduit to find them the right partner to go and service that, a partner that we trust, a partner we've done our due diligence on, a partner that we know is going to provide a reasonable commercial outcome for that client. So again, we act on behalf of the client to provide them the solution and essentially take that problem off their plate. It's not their problem ultimately. The Uber of waste comment, again,
Uber doesn't own the cars.
No. I mean, and again, if you look at our tagline, like I touched on before, the wired for change. So we are hell bent on driving innovation, driving technology. We're about to invest in a significant way in AI. I think AI is going to have a major impact on business and the ability to streamline processes and efficiency.
Yep.
And so we had this vision about 5 years ago of creating platforms and creating systems that customers would get transparent data, they get accurate data, they'd understand the weight of their waste. Because again, it's probably a sin of the waste industry of the past. They'd flip bins and you'd be like, you get a bill. Did you really get charged what you should have? Was the bin full or was it half full? And our position was that the customer should know the weight of their bin. That bin should only be collected when it needs to be collected, when it gets to the threshold, to the weight threshold these days. It's sort of governed by weight more so than volume.
Yep.
And we also wanted to build platforms that gave customers an understanding of what those options are. So again, if you're an organisation like Hospitality World Direct, you want to be able to go to a one-stop shop, a partner that can educate you and advise you on what are the different options. If you've got timber pallets that you've got to get rid of, what do I do with them? What is the cheapest way of getting rid of them?
I actually asked him that question the other day, just so you know.
Yeah, it's and again, if we can provide an environmental outcome as opposed to, I will take your timber pallets to landfill,
yep,
it's a better outcome for the client. So, simplifying the client's requirement around waste, and then again, that comes with EPA certificates. It comes with ensuring the chain of responsibility. I mean, you would have heard stories over the last X number of years that hazardous materials were found in farms. There were factories full of hazardous materials that were dumped illegally, and that's horrific. I mean, so you don't want to be a customer that aligns with a company that doesn't have that chain of custody, that doesn't have that responsibility over ensuring that your waste is managed ethically.
And things were done differently a long time ago, like hearing stories of demolishing a house, about to start construction, you start excavation, and it's full of asbestos, buried, because it was done. It was done back in the day. Dig a hole, they throw rubbish in it, put the backfill, and then just build a house on top.
Yep.
Happened a lot. Without divulging any industry secrets, anything new on the horizon for the waste network?
Yeah, I think like I touched on, I think AI is the new frontier.
Yep.
I mean, for us, we want to be leaner, faster. We want the customer to receive instant information that they're looking for. We want the ability for the customer to receive more streamlined communication. again, you can only employ so many people to sit in a call center that can respond to customers' needs. And we also want to ensure that we can be as efficient as possible so our energy is put into the right areas. So I think for us, AI is going to play a big part in what we do moving forward. I think there will be technology that we'll introduce that will help customers better understand what's in their bins, better understand what their bins weigh, better understand...
You're right, there hasn't been a lot of transparency in that. You book a bin, it gets picked up, you get a bill. Who's checking?
Correct.
Really? Who knows the answer?
Correct. Yeah.
That's
so
interesting.
it's a key part of our value proposition to ensure that customers get transparency. I want to get to a point where we've got technology in bins that when the bin at the back of Hospitality World Direct reaches a certain threshold, whether that's by weight or by volume, that bin communicates with our eye in the sky, our cloud, and that that bin is then set to a collection requirement. And, again, if I think of the location where we are, there'd be a dozen trucks that would drive down this road every couple of hours.
Yep.
So why rely on one truck, one fleet, one route to pick your bin up? And again, going back to the Uber of waste, it's giving the customer more options that keep their costs down.
Yep.
Give them more transparency, give them more data, and importantly, if we can act as that one-stop shop for them, then I think that's a better outcome. So technology is going to play its part. We're investing in some innovation now. We've got another arm of our business called BinTech IQ, where we're going to be deploying bin stations with technology in them that read volumetric data at the moment. We're soon going to move.
Who would have thought? Who would have thought? We're throwing something in the bin and there's so much data to capture.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just something that we don't think about.
And probably the other thing that we don't think about, again, if that bin, pick the Melbourne Sports and Aquatic Centre. It's one of our partners with Circa Group. Melbourne Sports and Aquatic Centre would have, 80 bins sat front of house, around the pools, around the basketball courts, everywhere. You've got cleaners that are responsible to ensure that those bins are changed over at an appropriate time. You don't want them overflowing with waste. And also, if you're the venue, you don't want to be paying a cleaner bill that you shouldn't be. So do you have cleaners walk around changing bags out that don't need to be? So this technology not only provides visibility as to what waste is in there and how much, but importantly, when that bin needs to be changed out.
The frequency, yeah.
So there could be a cost reduction in labour. I won't say cost reduction. It could be that labour could be deployed to other areas to do other things that are needed. So, again, the world's evolving. We're getting smarter with data and tech. And, for the waste network, that's the journey we're on. Probably the other thing that I think is important for any business owner, and certainly me, it's having the right people in your business. So we're investing heavily in the right people, in developing the right people, and supporting those right people. I don't want to be an organisation that turns staff over.
Yep.
I don't want to be an organisation that's constantly going through that churn of staff. I want to be an organisation that develops people, gives people opportunities, and ensures that they come to work and actually enjoy what they do.
And I can speak from experience because my team ring your team and your team are exceptional.
Yeah,
and they solve problems. And if we've ever got an issue, they get it sorted out quickly. Yep. They get back to us on time. Yep. And I can put hand on my heart and say that because we are a customer of yours. So I can actually come with that credibility.
Appreciate it. And that's important. It's important that our customers do have that feel because, as I said before, everyone attributes value differently or looks at value differently. So for you, that's obviously really important that your team has someone on the other end of the phone or email or portal or whatever it may be that's responsive.
Yep.
So, a happy team is generally a productive team. So that's important.
Speed is important. I don't want my guys in dispatch or in the factory mucking around with getting bins picked.
Absolutely.
I want things to get done quickly so they can keep doing their job.
For sure.
I've got a couple of little quick fire fun questions I like to have with my guests. All right. So strap in. Morning person or night owl?
I'll say night owl.
Okay.
I'll
I
say
thought,
night
you
owl.
know what? I looked at these questions last night and I said, I'm going to get, because I know you personally, I'm going to get them all right. And you know what? You've already fucked me up on the first one.
Well, I had to think about that one because I would have, it's actually an interesting question. Like the mornings for me, I've probably got a pep in my step. I've got my energy, but at night I think more. I'm a thinker at night.
Yeah.
So I'm not a night owl. I'm not someone that likes to sit up till 3 a.m. watching movies.
Sure.
I'm not that type of night owl. But I'm someone that, again, at night, I actually do my best thinking.
Quiet.
Maybe it's quiet. Maybe it's quieter. My kids are sort of, they're a little older now. But when we would put the kids to bed, that was probably when I did my best work, when I was just clear. I was clear of the office. It was me, the computer, and myself, and me, the computer, and my time to think. But yeah, I'll go 50-50 on that one.
But now we can't get them to bed
No.
early because now they're older. So times have changed. I do my best thinking in the mornings because I find nighttime, and everyone's different. I find nighttime, I want that just chill space where I try not to think about work. And then early in the morning, I'm on. Like from the moment I wake, I'm thinking about my day and what I got to do and what's next. And I'm already planning. Haven't even got out of bed. I'm already planning. We're all different. One word that your team would use to describe you. Always like that one.
It's a good one.
Always gets them
It's a
on the
good one
spot,
because
that
a
one.
couple of words popped into my head and I'm like, which one's the right one?
You can't say awesome.
No, I wouldn't say awesome. They probably wouldn't call me awesome. I'd probably say conviction.
Okay.
Conviction, and it's a word that we use around the office. Like,
Yep.
I always say to people that you choose your vocation in life. Like, I don't choose it for you, but if if you've got conviction about what it is that you're there to do, if you've got conviction about your people, if you've got conviction about your customer, like it always comes back to conviction for me.
Yep.
And I think, that word probably would be what resonates. Passion is one that people use, but I like conviction because it just sort of solidifies my vision for the business and, my determination.
I love it. Good word. And I've had many a beer in the backyard with you. It takes a podcast to start learning things about your friends that you do.
Well,
isn't that interesting?
It's true.
It takes this environment sometimes and you
true.
always learn. I love it.
True.
What song gets you instantly fired up?
I'm not a music person, really.
It's got to be something in the car.
What fires me up?
Can't be on the phone all the time in the car. Come on, you got to have a song every now and then. What's that one you were singing the other day? Who's gonna make the gravy?
I don't mind my Aussie classics, my Aussie classic rock. Look, I'm gonna have to pass on that one. I don't have one song that I'm passionate about. I think back in the day, I wouldn't mind a Rocky soundtrack when you're trying to, get a bit of pep in your step. But
Eye of the Tiger. Let's go with that.
Let's go with that.
Is it true that you thought you were the Tony Soprano of the waste industry?
Never thought that. Look, Australia certainly doesn't have that underbelly to it. America.
So it's not like that?
America
It's
does.
not like this,
The US does. The US is really. It's run. I'm probably speaking out of school a little bit, but there are elements of that.
We've got a lot of US viewers on YouTube.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Look, we're not, but I think one thing that you can liken Tony Soprano to the waste industry here in Australia is it's incestuous, is that everyone knows everyone and there's a lot of respect and there's a lot of crews and, again, you're probably going to be about your wits on how you behave and again, back to your reputational piece.
Yep.
But yeah, no, I don't see myself as Tony Soprano.
Beach or mountains?
Beach. Yeah. Walking the dog on the beach is my happy spot. Yep.
This is another one I love, which gets people stuck. Which actor would you want to play you in a movie?
George Clooney.
You didn't have to. You didn't
I'd
even
have to think about that one. Just there's something about George. He's just got that.
I could see you doing
He's just sharp.
an espresso ad.
Yeah.
I could see you doing that.
Yeah, no, I do like my coffee.
My favorite question. If you could have dinner with anyone on this planet, you've got them undivided, sitting across from you in the restaurant, anybody in the world, who would it be?
Wow. What a question. It is a good one.
Yeah.
It's a really good one. I would probably say, if I could have anyone, Tony Robbins.
Yep.
Yeah, and say dinner, I'm not a big rah-rah, let's get into a room and start, shouting on a microphone, but I just think it would be great to sit with him and challenge some of my thinkings and my learnings. And, I think naturally we all probably hide our insecurities.
Yep.
And, chatting to a guy like Tony Robbins, just breaking it all down and learning a little bit about me and what I could do better, and maybe probably building some of my confidence in the areas that maybe I'm not as confident in.
Yep.
So, yeah, Tony would
Man,
probably
if
be the
anyone
guy.
could do it, it'd be Tony Robbins.
Yeah,
So
I
good
reckon
choice.
He'd
I like
probably
it.
break me down a bit, yeah.
I like that.
There's so
So-
many names.
Where can people find you? Obviously, you're on the socials, got websites. So where can people find you?
Yeah,
at the
look,
Waste Network?
we've got a great digital platform. We certainly put a lot of energy into that. Our website is, thewastenetwork.com.au. We're active on social media. It's probably a differentiator than a lot of the other traditional waste businesses. We're very active on Instagram. And yeah, I think these days that seems to be the go-to, LinkedIn. But the best source of who we are comes from our website. I think that's the most current and up-to-date source of information.
Yep.
Yeah.
I love it. Thank you so much for coming.
You're
on the
welcome,
show.
and thanks for having me. And congratulations again. It's a great space, and I'm privileged to be part of it. So yeah.
I love what I'm doing with it, and it gives me the opportunity to bring on people like you,
Sure.
and talk about your journey, talk about your business, and where this show literally started was talking about business and entrepreneurship. It's grown its own little legs, like things evolve, and getting guests.
29,000 followers now on YouTube.
Yeah, I've interviewed DJs and all different industries now,
Yep.
and I'm loving it, and I'm having a ball
Great.
with it. And thank you for being a part of it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
It's been awesome.
Cheers.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Scottie G Show podcast. I can truly say, hand on my heart, the team at the Waste Network do an absolutely amazing job. And it's one of those parts of your business that maybe you're not thinking about all the time, but that's fine. Let them do the thinking. Let them have a look at your business and how they can help you potentially save you money wherever possible, but also streamlining efficiencies. And that is so important. Thanks so much for tuning in. Please don't forget, push all the buttons, like, share, subscribe, send us some DMs. If you want to come onto the show, please contact us. Would love to hear from you, and we will see you all soon. Thanks for tuning in.